Hello, I'm Caroline Tonna, Curator of Palazzo Falson, and I will be delivering a short presentation about our museum and its Pollinator Haven. The title of the paper is Be Happy Roof Garden. Now, something about Palazzo Falson first. It is an 800-year-old palazzo, and it is situated in the heart of the walled medieval city of Mdina. The palazzo served as a home for numerous families, well-to-do families, and the last owners and residents were Captain Olof Gollcher and his wife Nella. Now, Olof was a passionate collector and he needed a house where to place all the collections of paintings, furniture, silverware, oriental carpets, watches, rare books, and other objets d'art. So Palazzo Falson was the perfect place. And Olaf's wish was that after his death, the palazzo, including his collections, will be opened as a museum to the public. His wish was fulfilled after his death in 1962, and many years later, Fondazione Patrimonio Malti in 2007 opened Palazzo Falson as a historic house museum for the visitors. Now we have a look inside the museum where there's this beautiful courtyard which really reflects how the Gollcher, the couple, really loved nature, and most of the rooms of the palazzo overlook this charming courtyard. As you can see, there is a lovely, colorful, cascading bougainvillea, wisteria with fragrant flowers, and also various flowering plants and pots on the terrace. The couple also had a country house in the small village of Imjar in the northern part of Malta. This was their rural retreat, which they had bought in 1938, and they used the agricultural land around the house to build a miniature farm and also keep many different kinds of pets and farm animals. In Olaf's diaries and correspondence that are preserved in our archives in the museum, allow us to know that the couple were animal lovers. They had a donkey called Sally, they had sheep, goats, tortoises, and chickens, as well as dogs and a cat. Olaf and Nella grew various vegetables, and the donkey helped them out to plow Maltese potatoes. They also planted olive trees and roses. And here you can see the young Nella tending to her chickens and continued to do so later on in her life. The diaries also record the first set of 3 beehives in 1949, and later in 1951 Olof had 15 beehives. A few years later, documents attest to the collection of honey from the country house. So here we can see that Olof was fascinated with beehives, and at the museum we find even sketches in his notebooks recording apiaries in the countryside he came across while he was visiting the sister island Gozo. As seen in the sketch, you can make out from those sort of circular things that represent honey jars. They are beehives and they are placed on shelves. But these beehive jars were also placed in rubble walls. And once the honey was ready to harvest, the beekeeper would remove the beehive jar from the rubble wall or from the shelves and collect honey from the bottomless jar. And in the museum, in the refectory, we have an example of this earthenware beehive jar that really shows how it works. So as you can see, it is bottomless from the wide part, which is placed against the wall, and then the narrow neck, which is another opening from where the bees can go in and out through a covering which will be punctured. And this will allow easy access to the bees. Now, at Palazzo Falson, we wanted to pay homage to Olof and Nella for their love of nature and bees. And we also wanted to make the museum greener. So in 2019, we teamed up with Friends of the Earth Malta, a local NGO that campaigns to raise local bee populations and increase biodiversity across the Maltese islands. We transformed an unused area on the roof terrace and created a small green patch, a Pollinator Haven. The project was funded by the Malta Council for Voluntary Sector, and it was also supported by other private companies. Vivacity, a company that provides green rooftop ecosystem, was engaged to set up this area that you can see on the screen. Specifically designed lightweight modular green pillows were placed on the unused roof area to plant Mediterranean, indigenous, and endemic plants that attract and provide nourishment to pollinators. The green roof mimics the local Maltese natural garrigue, which is characterized by low-lying shrubs that grow in soil pockets within the rocks. Such plants withstand the hot weather and minimal rainfall, and an irrigation system was installed with water supplied from rainwater that is captured in the museum well. There are many benefits of having a green rooftop. It helps to purify the air, it insulates the building from outside temperatures, both in summer and winter. It embellishes the environment for our well-being, and above all, it is a fertile ground for wild plants to attract local bees, insects, butterflies, and birds. Our museum is taking these new initiatives as a measure for climate adaptation. And so the Pollinator Haven is one of these initiatives. Palazzo Falson is very active in children's workshops, inspired by the artifacts we have in the museum and also the narrative. In March 2019, in collaboration again with Friends of the Earth, we organized a spring plant and pollinator workshop for children aged between 6 and 12. An experienced Maltese beekeeper, George Spiteri, demonstrated the technique of beekeeping and different species of wild bees in Malta. The children had the opportunity to learn about the traditional beehive jar, known in Maltese as il-olla, that is, as we explained before, on display in the museum. And they also enjoyed a guided tour of the Historic House Museum. The workshop was successful and we repeated it again after a few days to the enjoyment of more children. Chiara Battistelli, the author of the book The 1,000 Questions of Dino Ricciolino, Out in the Garden, was invited to read out the story. The book is beautifully illustrated and tells the story of Dino asking his mother about the flowers and bees in the garden and learns how bees make honey. The children during the workshop also painted a terracotta pot each with their favorite plant or bee, and then they took it home as a memento. The children were given cuttings and seeds to sow at home and grow their own plants, setting an example also to their parents. Like many museums, we had to close down during COVID. However, we continued our children's workshops online, inviting children to keep in touch with nature at home and be inspired by our newly installed Pollinator Haven. We encourage children to go around the house, collect material and upcycle to do this three-dimensional pop-up card with Chantel, one of our museum hosts, who showed the children how to create it step by step. The recording was also shared on our social media for the enjoyment of other children who couldn't follow the workshop at that moment in time. We also distributed, thanks to Friends of the Earth, this bee identification guide sheet that highlights the 10 most common bees found in Malta. And doing this digitally, we saved on paper. We also reached out to a wider audience, and it is available as a teacher's resource also on our website. Again, while we were working behind closed doors, we came up with the idea to create a new activity book for children and also include this activity, Be Safe. Abigail, another talented museum host who helps out with children's activities, created this double-page spread using attractive illustrations of Olaf and his dog and various bee types to make learning about apiculture more fun. Once we reopened the museum to the public, we were very excited to welcome children back to the museum, and we organized a bee biscuit workshop. Children were actively cutting out these bee-shaped biscuits out of short crust pastry, and while they were being baked, the children were taken around the museum. They learned about the beehive jar, and also once the biscuits were baked, then they were invited at the rooftop terrace to decorate these biscuits and then take with them at home. We also have an outreach program on our social platforms, and we regularly post announcements on the Pollinator Haven, especially when the flowers are blooming and when we have visiting pollinators. We try to do this as an interactive way with our audience and also give it a quiz type question and answer, and one is curious to know more about the different species and plants and also pollinators. Hannah, another museum host, is in charge of our social media posts. And here we have an example of in-house short videos that she took when she captured a pollinator visiting the Pollinator Haven. We also reached out to a popular cultural program called Maltarti that is aired on national TV to promote the Pollinator Haven and the workshop inspired from it. In this way, we are reaching out to a wider audience, and also we shared this feature on social media. The response was very satisfactory. Another initiative was a creative collaboration between third-year students from the Department of Digital Arts and Palazzo Falson, which resulted in meaningful projects that benefited both the students and the museum. The students were taken care of by Professor Vince Briffa and Dr. Trevor Borch, and they all took part in this internship called Professional Practice, where students had the opportunity to work directly with the museum on real-life projects, and it provided them with hands-on experience. They created interactive activities, animation for children, and also produced audio-video visuals. One of the projects focused mainly on the Pollinator Haven. And here you can see an illustration of an interactive game for children to learn about flowers and pollinators. Students also designed attractive illustrations of the various flowers we have in our Pollinator Haven to create awareness on botany and also the benefits that they provide for the nourishment of pollinators. Another group of students came up with the idea of a limited edition of prints on woodblock for merchandising, and this would also help to generate revenue for the museum. Another group of students filmed a promotional video of a visitor's experience of the museum with an animated bee leading the way up to the Pollinator Haven, where the actual tour ends when visiting at Palazzo Falson, and I let you see just a very small part of the video. We hope you have enjoyed this presentation, and our aim is that other museums in Malta would take the lead to have their own Pollinator Haven, as well as visitors to create a green patch on their private residence. Thank you.